Hello, so today we're going to be making a loaf of 75% whole wheat bread. We're going to be making it out of this book, which is one of my favorite books for making bread. So to start off with, I've went ahead and I've already weighed out the contents of what we need. So in here we have 375 grams of whole wheat flour. And in this one, we have 125 grams of all-purpose white. And over here I have water that's roughly at 100 degrees or 30 degrees Celsius. I have 400 grams of water. Now, of course, I weighed that all on my scale that I have. So I went ahead and I pre-did all that before, so it's all ready to go. So basically what we're going to do, we're just going to take another big bowl and we're going to pour in our flours into this. And we're just going to go ahead and mix them up by hand. I make a little well in the center. And now I'm just going to pour my water in. I'm going to take a handle. You can use a wooden spoon handle or small handle off this. I'm using a handle previous from one of these, taking the end off. So I'm just going to stir from the center, pulling the flour in. Now you notice I haven't put any yeast in. I'm not putting any yeast in at all at this point. I'm just going to mix the flour on the water and then I'm going to let it sit for 30 minutes. And I'll add the yeast later. So this bread is one-day bread, so it'll be ready later today. I started this bread, it's a little after 9 a.m. so this bread will be ready in the oven around 3:30 or so. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water on my hands and remove this excess. I'm just going to go ahead and pull this together. And I'm just going to cover this up and I'm going to let it sit. I'm going to cover it with some saran wrap or cling foil, and I'm going to let it sit for 30 minutes and then we'll come back and we'll add the yeast at that point. Okay, so the dough's been sitting for about 30 minutes. Let's put that over there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some salt. I'm just going to put a few sprinkles of salt over the top. Not too much, maybe about 1 teaspoon. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my yeast, which I already weighed, which is about 1.5 grams. And it's just fresh rapid yeast. If you don't have a scale, you can also measure it. It's about 1 teaspoon. So I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle that over the top. And then I'm going to wet my hands. I've got some warm water here, tap water. Don't want to use cold because we don't want to bring the temperature of the bread down. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the bread, I'm going to grab it from underneath and I'm going to fold it over and incorporate all that yeast into the actual bread. Now you can wet your hands as many times as you want. Now this, what we're making today, is only going to make 1 loaf. If you want to make 2 loaves, you can double it. So basically we're just grabbing the dough, we're stretching it, Now because it's whole wheat, it doesn't stretch that much. And we're just stretching it over top, try to mix this all together. We've done that about 4 times. I'm going to take the dough, we're going to do the pincer method and just pinch the dough using our forefinger and our thumb and try to bring all the ingredients together. And now we're going to fold it down once, folding it underneath. We're going to fold it one more time. You can see the dough is fairly wet, fairly sticky. And we're just going to cover that. We're going to let it sit about 10 minutes and we're going to give it another fold. So we'll just go ahead and cover this back up. Now the temperature of the dough is still fairly warm, allows it to, the yeast to activate. So we're just going to go ahead and leave that and we'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, so the dough's sit about 10 minutes. It's been about 10 minutes now. You can see the condensation on the wrap here. The temperature of the dough is roughly about 75, so it's fairly warm. So we're just going to give it a couple of quick more folds. I'm going to move this out of the way. Give it about 3 more folds here and wet my hands. Again, the water is warm. So I'm just going to leave it in the bowl. I'm just going to grab it from the bottom and I'm going to pull it up. See, there's not a lot of stretch in this because it's whole wheat. I'm just going to fold it over. I'm going to do that from each side. This is going to add flavor and air to the dough. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip the dough. I'm going to grab it from the center. I'm going to flop it down. And I'm going to kind of tighten the dough up to about 3 times. Form it into a ball. And now we're going to go ahead and cover the dough back up. And we're going to let it rise until the dough gets approximately 2 to 3 times the size. So we'll go ahead and cover it back up with the foil. I keep saying foil, it's cling wrap, but what I keep calling it foil. And we'll be back once it rises. Okay, so our dough's been rising for about 4 hours. We take a look at it. So we see that it's doubled. We can see there's air bubbles in the side. The dough is doubled in size. So what we're going to do now is we're going to, if this was a 2 loaf, we would go ahead and we would cut it up into 2. But I only made 1 batch for 1 loaf. So I have a forming basket here. It's made out of rattan. It's a rattan basket. So it has a cloth in it. You can put the dough in that, but I prefer to use it without, so we get the nice shape on the loaf. So we can see here, I'll just move this over. So I need to flour this up, make sure it's got lots of flour in it. So I have some flour here. Put some flour in there. I'm just going to push it around, make sure it's all floured up nice, so the dough doesn't stick to it, because if the dough sticks to it, when we go to remove it, then that's going to be not very good. So it's good and floured up. We're just going to set that over there for a minute, gently. We're going to flour up our surface here. Need a nice clean area. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove our dough out of our bowl that we have. Just by using the spatula. Keep turning it, loosening it, and flop it down. Okay. And get my flour again. So this time we're going to flour our hands up. So basically we're going to do the same method we did before. We're just going to take the bread, stretch it, and fold it over. Okay? So we're going to grab it, I'm going to stretch it, fold it over. And the dough is very sticky this time. Stretch it, fold it. Stretch, fold. Just make sure you do this, go all the way around. We're going to do it twice all the way around. Fold. Give it another one. See, it's tightening up. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to flip the dough over. And we're going to start, we're going to put a little dough on the top of that, or flour, sorry. And we're going to start pushing the dough underneath itself, causing a nice ball. So now, when we put this into the proofing basket, the bottom, you can see the air bubbles forming in this. You see how much it's dropped down in size again. So now we're going to put this in the proofing basket, and the bottom that's on the table, when I place it in there, will become the top when we remove it and put it into our, to be cooked into our Dutch oven. So we'll go ahead and pick that up. I'm going to place that on the bottom. It's nice and tight. And we're just going to cover it up. So I'm going to cover it up with a tea towel, and we're just going to let it sit again for about another hour and a half, and then it'll be ready to go. Now, we're going to cook this in a 10-quart Dutch oven. So in about 40 minutes, I'm going to place it in the oven and let it heat up at 450 for 45 minutes, because we want it to be actually hot when we use it. We don't want it to be cold, or else everything's going to stick to it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cover this up, and we'll come back once it rises, and then we'll place it in the oven. I should mention too, if you don't have one of these, you can use a regular, you could use the bowl that we used before. We could use it to place the dough in by oiling it, putting olive oil in it, the same idea. I just using the proofing basket. Okay, so my bread has been rising. Take a look at it. So the full way to check the bread is just to poke your finger in it. And if it springs back up, then it's completed. Then it's ready to go, ready to be baked. If it doesn't, if it stays indented, then you need to let it proof a little bit longer. I've taken my Dutch oven out of the oven. It's extremely hot right now. That's why I placed the mid on here. It's just to remind me that it is hot. So we're going to slide this over. And I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and I'm going to put it in there, bottom down. So I'm just going to place the towel on here just so I don't burn myself. So I'm going to flip this over. And there it pops out. You see the nice lines in it. And now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to let this flop in the center. Boom. Just going to grab my other oven mitt. It's always good practice to place the oven mitts on top of the hot. So you go ahead and you see what that looks like. You see the cracks in the dough. I'm just going to leave it. You can score the top. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it. I'm going to put the lid on. I'm going to place it in the oven for 30 minutes. If you want the crust to be crispy, you can take the lid off and do it for another 15. I'm just going to leave it on. I'm going to bake it at 450 degrees. I'm going to bake it for 45 minutes. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Okay, so my bread finished baking in the oven for 45 minutes. I removed it out of my Dutch oven. I placed it on a cooling rack. It's totally cool now. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a cut. Just when you take it out of the oven, the crust is really hard. The way I like to store my bread is I like to keep it in a plastic container, just to, you know, one that fits in, and it will soften the loaf up so the bread is not extremely hard to cut, so the crust isn't hard. But anyways, you see the nice natural break in the bread. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it. And we'll take a look at, I'm just going to cut it right in the middle here. And we'll take a look at the center. And there's the loaf. It's got nice air in it. It's got a nice smell to it, nice texture. So that's it. And now I'm going to make myself a nice sandwich with this bread. Thank you very much.